It always starts the same way. She looks at you, not for who you are, but for who she thinks you could become. You feel it in her gaze, don't you? That flicker. Maybe it's hope, or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's hunger. And for a second, you think you're being seen, but you're not. You're being scanned, weighed, measured like a blank page she's itching to write on. But the story she's writing? It's not your story. It never was. Carl Jung warned us, not with pretty metaphors or sweet affirmations, but with the cold, surgical insight of a man who spent his life staring straight into the depths of the human soul. Jung didn't play games. He mapped the unconscious, the hidden terrain of the mind that moves beneath awareness, shaping everything we think, feel, and desire. And in that map, he found something unsettling, especially when it came to women. He found that women don't just fall in love with men, they fall in love with the idea of men, with the projection, with the version of you that lives only in their imagination. And the wildest part? Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. You think she picked you, but the truth is, she picked a character she's been rehearsing since childhood, and you happened to fit the costume. And when you stop fitting the part, she doesn't rewrite the script, she recasts the actor. Jung had a name for this projection: the animus, the inner masculine image that lives in every woman. And when that animus is underdeveloped or unconscious, it becomes a tyrant. It starts making decisions for her. It tells her who to chase and who to reject, who to praise and who to punish. And no, it's not rational. It's not wise. It's not fair. It's the voice that makes her crave chaos and run from stability. It argues just to dominate. It moralizes without a mirror. Jung didn't sugarcoat any of this. He described it as spiritual possession, a state where the woman isn't even fully herself anymore. She's acting from a fantasy she doesn't realize she's trapped in. And as for men, you fall for it. You don't even see it coming. Why? Because nobody ever taught you how to spot it. You confuse being wanted with being understood. You think being chosen means you're being seen. She tells you you're different, that you're special, that you're not like the others. And maybe you believe her. Until one day, the mask slips, the illusion crumbles, and you're left standing in the ruins, wondering what the hell you did wrong. But here's the truth. You didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped playing the role she cast you in. Jung believed that the only way out of this theater of illusions was through a brutal, lifelong process called individuation. It's not a motivational buzzword. It's not about becoming better or alpha or high value. It's about becoming whole inside yourself, independent of any script, any audience. But most men, most never even start. Why? Because we've been trained to seek approval, to chase validation, to let women decide what we're worth. And as long as you keep doing that, you'll keep playing the same role over and over again. You'll keep getting replaced every time the fantasy changes. Individuation isn't pretty. It's not Instagram worthy. It's not going to get you applause. It's brutal. It makes you face everything you've buried. The weak parts, the scared parts, the broken pieces you've tried so hard to hide. It forces you to stop blaming women for not seeing the real you and start asking why you haven't seen it yourself. Because Jung knew what most men will never learn. You don't become a man by being chosen. You become a man by choosing yourself. Your worth isn't measured by how much she loves you. It's measured by your ability to stand on your own, awake, responsible, alive. And here's the real power of individuation. When a man has faced his own unconscious, he can't be seduced by projection anymore. He can't be manipulated by flattery. He's not a pawn in anyone's fantasy. He's the one holding the pen. Jung said, the real tragedy isn't that modern men are rejected. It's that we're so willing to shapeshift into whatever form we think will be accepted. We call it compromise. We call it maturity. We even call it love. But Jung had a different word for it: self-betrayal. He warned that if a man ignores his own psychological development, he becomes a slave to feminine projection. He bends like wet clay into shapes demanded by women who don't even know what they truly want. You become less of a man and more of a mask, smiling, nodding, performing, until you forget what your own face looks like underneath it all. And women, they feel that. They might not say it. They might not even know how to explain it, but they feel it. The very traits you think make you more lovable: obedience, predictability, always being available, are often the exact things that kill attraction. Why? Because the feminine doesn't crave safety. Not really. It craves mystery, challenge, the unknown. It wants the man who can't be fully controlled or defined. The moment you make yourself completely accessible, without boundaries, without identity, you don't become more attractive. You become invisible, replaceable. And here's the paradox that keeps so many men stuck. You fear being alone more than you fear being fake. You'd rather lose yourself than lose her. You'd rather be a character in someone else's play than face the silence of standing alone on an empty stage. But Jung said it clearly: until a man embraces solitude, he will never be free. He wrote that individuation requires you to die before you die, to let every false identity burn so that something real, something unshakable, can finally emerge. But here's the thing: no one wants to say individuation is lonely, terrifyingly lonely, because as you walk that road, you start to see. And what you see, you can't unsee. You recognize the masks people wear, the games they play, the lies they tell just to feel secure. And when you speak what you see, they turn on you. They call you cold, arrogant, too intense. They say you're the problem, but you're not. You're just the mirror. And people, they hate mirrors that reflect something they don't want to confront. Jung spent his life studying this. He worked with people who were terrified to face their own shadow, the dark, rejected parts of themselves they locked away to survive. And he saw something important. Women, especially, are often raised in cultures that reward them for avoiding that inner confrontation. They're told they're pure, emotional, complete, just as they are. Jung didn't buy it. He said the greatest danger to women wasn't the outside world. It was their unconscious animus, that voice inside that speaks with fake authority, that moral superiority that isn't grounded in truth, but in illusion. If she doesn't confront it, it owns her. It speaks through her. It turns every man she meets into a projection screen. And you, thinking you're the exception, believe you'll be the one to save her. You won't. You can't. That's not your work. But that kind of strength, the strength to walk away from illusion, is rare. And the reason it's rare isn't because men aren't capable of it. It's because most men have been conditioned to avoid it at all costs. From the time you were a boy, you were taught that love means sacrifice, that being good means being chosen, that being chosen means you're worth something. So, you learned to shapeshift. You learned to read her signals, her moods, her preferences, and slowly you stopped being a man with a spine and started being a reflection with a pulse. And the world applauds that. Society calls it romance. Movies call it a happy ending. But Jung had another word for it: self-forgetting. The moment you let someone else define your worth, you've forgotten who you are. You've abandoned the very foundation of your being. And here's the twist. Most people don't even notice when they're doing it. It feels so normal, so familiar, so safe. But safety isn't the same thing as truth. Safety isn't wholeness. It's the padded cell you sit in while your soul starves behind a locked door. So what does individuation really look like? It doesn't look like rebellion. It doesn't mean rejecting women or isolating yourself from love. It means doing something far more radical. It means sitting in your own discomfort long enough to hear what your soul is actually trying to say. It means being willing to be misunderstood, to be unloved, to be alone for a season of your life so you can finally hear your own voice. And that voice, that's your compass. That's the man beneath the mask. The one who doesn't perform, doesn't posture, doesn't plead. He just is. But getting there is hell. You'll lose people. Friends will drift. Lovers will vanish. Some will accuse you of becoming arrogant. Others will say you've grown cold. And in a way, they're right. You have grown cold. Cold to the lies. Cold to the performance. Cold to the fantasy. What they don't understand is that underneath that coldness is fire. A fire that was buried under years of pretending to be lovable instead of being real. And now that fire is burning through everything false. Jung called this a necessary death. The death of the false self. The man you pretended to be so she would stay. The boy who swallowed his voice so he wouldn't be abandoned. The mask you wore so you wouldn't be judged. All of it must die, and in its place, something terrifying and beautiful is born. The real you. But the real you doesn't need to be chosen. He doesn't beg to be seen. He sees himself. He knows his wounds. He's made peace with his past. And because of that, he cannot be manipulated by someone else's idea of who he should be. Now here's the part they don't tell you. Once you reach that level of self-possession, women will still project onto you. They'll still try to cast you in their fantasy, still hope you'll play the part, but you'll see it instantly. You'll feel the tug, the subtle pressure to become something other than yourself. And you'll simply say, no, not with arrogance, not with cruelty, with clarity, with love. Because when you know who you are, you don't need to fight to protect it. You just stand, still, firm, unmoved. And some women, the ones who haven't done their own work, will panic in the presence of that stillness. They'll call you distant, hard, unreachable. But others, the rare ones, will recognize it. They'll feel that presence, And instead of trying to change it, they'll rise to meet it. Not to control, not to possess, but to walk beside it. These women don't need you to be their fantasy. They need you to be real, because they've burned through their own illusions too. They've met their animus. They've confronted the part of themselves that tried to turn men into gods or monsters. And in doing so, they've become women who are no longer seeking salvation through someone else's body. They're not trying to be completed. They're standing whole. And when two whole people meet, there's no script. There's no performance. There's just truth. Conversation that doesn't rely on charm. Connection that isn't bought with sacrifice. Love that isn't addicted to need. But getting there requires you to stop being the boy who needs to be liked and start being the man who is willing to be misunderstood. Jung said it best: the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that's not something you inherit. It's something you earn through pain, through loss, through the discipline of not abandoning yourself, even when it's easier to disappear into the fantasy she's offering. Because the truth is, she doesn't need another puppet. She doesn't need another man who trades authenticity for affection. Deep down, she's hoping you'll say no. She's hoping you'll not be seduced by her projection, that you'll hold your ground not because you're cruel, but because you respect yourself too much to disappear into someone else's dream. And when you do that, when you finally stop trying to be lovable and start being real, something shifts. You stop attracting relationships based on illusion. You stop getting trapped in the same cycle of being chosen, then discarded. Because you're no longer a mask. You're a man. And the world doesn't know what to do with men like that. Society will call you emotionally unavailable. Culture will label you toxic. Even your own friends might try to talk you back into being normal. But you'll know. You'll feel it in your body, in your spine, in your breath, in your silence. The calm that comes from no longer needing to be anything other than who you are. And here's the craziest part. That calm, that groundedness, that's what women actually want. Not the ones who are trapped in projection, no, but the ones who have done the work, the ones who have stepped out of the fantasy and into the fire of their own soul. They're not looking for a savior. They're not looking for a puppet. They're looking for a partner. Someone who doesn't flinch when the masks fall. Someone who doesn't run when the truth shows up. So if you want to be that man, it starts here. Not with tactics, not with charm, not with a new dating strategy. It starts with a terrifying, uncomfortable, sacred question. Who am I when no one is watching? Who am I when no one needs me to be anything? That question is the doorway to your real life. If you're brave enough to sit with that question, who am I when no one is watching? You'll probably feel lost at first. You might not have an answer. That's okay. That's the point. Most of what you thought was you was actually a collage of responses to other people's needs, approval seeking, image management, fear-based decisions dressed up as ambition. So don't rush to find a new identity. Let the old one crumble. Let the silence stretch. Let the confusion breathe. This is the descent Jung talked about, the journey into the underworld of the self. It's not glamorous. There are no medals here, just shadows, regret, memories you buried, choices you made out of fear instead of love. And yet, this descent is the holiest thing you will ever do, because it's where the real work happens. It's where you stop being a projection and start becoming a presence. You'll face all the parts of yourself you tried to hide, the needy child, the angry teenager, the jealous man who pretended he wasn't hurt, and you'll learn not to exile those parts anymore. You'll learn to sit with them, not to justify their behavior, but to understand their pain. You'll father your own soul. That's individuation, not perfection, not alpha male mastery, not some Instagram-worthy lifestyle, but inner integration, wholeness, the quiet realization that nothing outside you can give you what you've been chasing, not her love, not her approval, not even her body. You'll finally see that those were just mirrors, and the only thing worth seeing in the mirror is yourself. But you can't shortcut this. You can't read 10 quotes by Jung and expect to transcend your patterns. You have to feel them. You have to watch yourself fall back into the fantasy and then catch it. You have to notice the urge to prove yourself and instead breathe. You have to hear her disappointment, her silence, her withdrawal, and instead of chasing her, you sit, still, strong, not because it's easy, but because it's sacred. Because this is the death of the false man, and death always hurts. There will be nights you question if you're doing the right thing. Moments you feel like you're losing everything. Your connection to women, your place in the world, your very sense of identity. But the truth is, you're not losing anything real. You're losing the illusion. You're shedding the costume. And what remains is what was there all along. You, unfiltered, undeniable, unafraid. This version of you doesn't win women. He doesn't attract high-value partners. He doesn't play games or decode texts. He lives in truth. And because of that, his presence is rare. Some will find it magnetic. Others will find it threatening. But either way, it won't matter. Because he's not seeking validation. He's not performing. He's simply being. And ironically, this is when real love becomes possible. Because only when you stop needing her to complete, can you actually connect with her. Only when you stop using her as a mirror for your worth can you see her clearly, not as a fantasy, not as a goddess, as a human, beautiful, flawed, scared, powerful, and real. And that's where the polarity returns. Not the manipulative polarity of masculine versus feminine cliches, but the sacred polarity of truth meeting truth, presence meeting presence. Two people who are no longer playing roles, but simply witnessing each other. And in that witnessing, something astonishing happens. You stop needing to be good enough. You stop trying to earn her. You stop trying to prove your masculinity, and instead, you just stand, and she either meets you there, or she doesn't. And if she doesn't, you bless her path. You let her go without collapsing, because your worth was never on the line. That's the end of the cycle. That's the moment you realize you're free. Not because someone chose you, but because you chose yourself. Again, and again, and again. So if you're hearing this, and part of you is aching, good. That's the part of you that's ready to be born. The man inside the boy, the fire inside the mask, the presence inside the performance. Don't rush it. Sit with it. Let it burn. And when it's done burning, when there's nothing left but silence, you'll finally meet the man you were always meant to be. And he doesn't chase. He creates. He builds. He loves, but never at the cost of his soul. He knows that the rarest thing a man can offer a woman is not his devotion, it's his truth. And that changes everything.